The society has sold you an incomplete story, a story that keeps you trapped, obedient, and adjusted to what is expected of you. And worst of all, you've believed every word. Since you can remember, they've told you that youth is the highest point of your existence, that after 30 the decline begins, and that when you cross 40, there's not much left to do. Lies. Real life doesn't begin when you're young, when you follow the rules and strive to fit in. Real life begins when you realize that everything you've built so far is just a reflection of what others expect from you. And that moment, according to Carl Jung, comes when you cross 40. Does it sound strange? Of course it does. It's not what you've been taught. Because no one tells you that the first 40 years of your life are actually a rehearsal, an accumulation of experiences, failures, and successes that don't fully belong to you. For 4 decades, you've been trained to be someone. You've been programmed to adjust, to meet the established norms. And then you reach 40 and something inside you starts to break. It's a silent crack, a fracture in the facade you worked so hard to build. Suddenly, what once made sense begins to crumble. The things that motivated you no longer fulfill you. The rewards you longed for feel empty. You start questioning yourself. Is all this real? Who am I when no one is watching? How much of what I do is truly mine? And here comes the part no one tells you. This is the most important moment of your life. It's the awakening, the beginning of the individuation process. Carl Jung explained it with brutal clarity. During the first years of our lives, we build an identity based on external expectations. We are children, students, professionals, parents, spouses, but rarely are we ourselves. We adapt, we disguise ourselves, we adjust to the molds imposed on us. And then, when we reach the halfway point, when the weight of all those masks becomes unbearable, we begin to awaken. And it's terrifying. Because everything you believe to be true starts to fade. Because success, recognition, validation, suddenly they mean nothing. Because what once defined you no longer serves you. And there, in that abyss, you have 2 options. Hold on to the old, keep acting, live the next 40 years with the same mask, or strip everything off and start over. Here's the truth that few are willing to accept. If you reach 40 without questioning yourself, without feeling that everything you've built could be a lie, it's because you are still asleep. And most people are. Most prefer not to see. They prefer to hold on to the familiar, even if it's false. They prefer the comfort of routine over the vertigo of authenticity. But those who dare to face the truth discover something incredible: freedom. Because when you stop worrying about what's expected of you, you begin to live on your own terms. Because when you realize you don't have to follow the same direction just because you've been walking down that path for years, you can choose another. Because when you understand that success isn't about what the world applauds but about what truly fulfills you, you begin to truly exist. And here comes the question that will make you uncomfortable. How much of your current life is truly yours? How much of what you do every day reflects your essence? And how much is just a reflection of what others expect from you? Are you living or just acting? It's easy to avoid these questions. It's easy to move forward without looking too deep. But at some point, the truth will break through. At some point, the weight of the false will become unbearable. And when that moment comes, when you look around and realize that the path you're following isn't yours, what will you do? Here's the key. At 40, the decline doesn't begin. The revolution does. It's not the end of anything, it's the beginning of everything. It's the moment when you can break the chains, abandon the script, break with expectations, and begin writing your own story. The question is, do you dare? Jung called it the individuation process. I call it rebirth. And you decide what to do with this opportunity. But here's where things get even more intense. When you begin to strip away what you are not, when you start tearing off the layers of expectations, validation, and superficial success, the first thing you feel is not relief. It's emptiness. A terrifying emptiness. Because your whole life you've been defined by what you do, by what you achieve, by how others see you. And what happens when you leave all that behind? You face the worst question of all. Who are you when no one is looking? That's why many prefer not to do the work. They prefer to stick with their old identity because even if it's false, at least it's familiar. Because the fear of emptiness is real. It's deep, and it paralyzes you. But there's something Jung understood better than anyone. The emptiness is not an end. It's a beginning. When you shed everything that is not you, when you face the silence of your own existence without adornments or filters, that's when you have the chance to rebuild yourself from scratch, to create an identity that is not based on what others expect, but on what you truly are. And here's where the real work begins. Because finding your true essence is not something that happens overnight. It's not an instant epiphany. It's a process, a journey of exploration, trial and error, constant discovery. But there's one fundamental thing you must understand. This process is solitary. No one can do it for you. No one will give you a manual, a formula, or a clear path. Because your true self is not found in a book, nor in advice, nor in a trend. It is found in experience, in action, in the courage to try, to risk, to make mistakes, to start over. Here's the brutal part. Not everyone will get to this point. Most will never do it. Most will keep clinging to what they know, to what gives them security, even if it's false security. Because breaking with everything and starting from zero is terrifying. Because looking inside yourself without distractions is uncomfortable. But if you do it, if you truly dare to dive into the emptiness, to leave behind what you are not, to explore without fear who you could be, then you will understand the truth Jung tried to teach us. Life is not about meeting expectations. It's about transcending them. And only when you free yourself from everything you are not can you begin to become who you are truly destined to be. Now the real fun begins. Because when you start breaking with what you are not, when you finally face that emptiness I told you about, something unexpected happens. You realize the world you once knew is no longer the same. Conversations that once seemed important now seem trivial. Goals that pushed you to get up every morning now seem absurd. Fears that once paralyzed you have lost their power. It's as if you've removed a veil from your eyes and suddenly see reality as it is. And no, it's not a pretty reality. It's a raw reality, full of artifices, of people who still don't realize they are trapped in a wheel that leads nowhere. And here arises a problem no one warns you about. When you awaken, you feel alone, because now you see things others don't see. Because now you understand dynamics that before went unnoticed. And hardest of all, because now you realize that many people around you are not on the same path as you. Friendships based on superficial interests fade. Relationships that existed only because they played a specific role begin to feel empty. Conversations that once filled your time now only seem like noise. And here's where many get scared and take a step back. Because no one wants to feel isolated. No one wants to realize they may have spent years, even decades, surrounded by people with whom they never had a deep connection. But this is one of the most important tests of this process. Because when you free yourself from what you are not, you inevitably also free yourself from those who were only there for the false version of you. It's a brutal filter, but necessary. Because only when you dare to let go of what doesn't fit your new version of yourself can you begin to attract what you truly need. This is where the second phase of this journey begins. Because individuation is not just about letting go, it's also about rebuilding. And this is what differentiates those who awaken from those who simply get lost in the confusion. Some, when they reach this point, sink into despair. They cling to nostalgia, to the idea that maybe they were better off before, when they could still fit into a world that now feels alien to them. But others understand something much more powerful, that now they have the opportunity to consciously choose what kind of life they want to build. Think about it. So far, most of the things in your life have been the result of decisions made under the influence of external expectations. You chose a career, a partner, a lifestyle based on what you were taught was right, successful, acceptable. But now, for the first time, you have the opportunity to choose for yourself. And here comes the next big obstacle, the fear of making a mistake. Because when you follow the path traced by others, at least you have the excuse that you were just doing what you were supposed to do. But when you decide for yourself, when you start to build an authentic life, there's no one else to blame if you fail. That's why many, even after realizing the truth, still don't dare to take control of their lives. They prefer to stay in limbo, in that gray area where they are no longer completely asleep, but they also don't dare to move. But here's where another teaching of Jung comes into play. The individuation process is not comfortable. It's not designed to be easy, because it's about facing what you fear the most, challenging every one of the lies with which you have identified, destroying the old to build something new. It's a process of death and rebirth. And like all rebirths, it involves going through a period of darkness. But what lies on the other side of that darkness is something that most people never get to experience, a sense of absolute freedom. Because when you stop acting according to what others expect of you, when you start to build a life that truly resonates with you, something incredible happens. Anxiety disappears. The constant feeling of chasing something that never arrives dissolves. The need for external validation loses its weight. The urgency to fit in, to be accepted, to meet arbitrary standards fades away. And in its place, something much more powerful appears. Peace. A peace that does not depend on external circumstances, on achievements, on recognition, on approval. A peace that comes from knowing you are living according to your truth. It's the difference between existing and living, between reacting and choosing, between being a copy of what you were told you should be and becoming the most authentic version of yourself. But here's the last big secret that no one tells you. This process has no end. There's no point at which you say, that's it, I found myself, now I'm completely free. Because individuation is not a destination, it's a journey. Each new stage of your life will bring new masks you'll need to break, new layers of identity you'll need to shed, new truths you'll need to discover. What changes is that once you wake up, you can never go back to sleep, and that changes everything. Because when you understand that real life begins when you dare to be who you really are, you begin to see everything differently. You begin to make decisions from clarity instead of fear. You begin to surround yourself with people who truly resonate with your frequency, rather than those who were just there because you fit their idea of who you should be. You begin to live with intention instead of just reacting to what the world throws at you. And that's the real difference between those who awaken and those who stay trapped in the dream. Because in the end, the most important question is not, what should I do with my life? The question is, who do I want to be? And once you dare to answer it honestly, everything else falls into place on its own. Now here's where everything becomes really intense. Because now you know, you can't go back. You can't pretend you haven't heard this, that you haven't felt that knot in your stomach, that you haven't noticed how something inside you has shifted. That's the problem with the truth. Once you see it, there's no way to unsee it. You can try to ignore it, distract yourself, dive into routine, and pretend nothing has changed. But deep down, something is already broken. And that crack will only grow bigger until you dare to cross it. Because if there's anything worse than living in ignorance, it's waking up and doing nothing about it. But here's the most important part. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the first step. The fear you feel, the uncertainty, the sense that maybe you're making a mistake. All of that is part of the process. And I'll tell you something. If you don't feel fear, then you're not really moving forward. Because growth always feels uncomfortable. Transformation always hurts. And that's why so few make it this far. Because most get stuck in analysis paralysis, in the endless search for certainty before acting. But certainty doesn't come before you start. It comes along the way. So here's the challenge. Stop waiting. Stop looking for a sign. Stop asking for permission. No one will come to save you. No one will come to say, now is the time. Because the perfect moment doesn't exist. There is only the moment when you decide to act. And that moment is now. But here's the flip side. Don't expect the world to applaud your awakening. Don't expect recognition, unconditional support, Or congratulations for daring to break with the established. Because when you start living according to your own truth, you will inevitably become a threat to those who still don't dare to do the same. They will criticize you. They will question you. They will try to make you doubt. And they won't do it because it's you. They'll do it because your transformation reminds them of their own inaction. Because seeing you move forward makes them realize that they are still stuck. But that's where you must stand firm. That's where you must remember that this path is not for them. It's for you. So don't look for approval. Don't seek validation. Don't ask for permission. Because the only person who can decide who you are is you. And now the decision is yours. You can close this video and go back to your life as if nothing happened. Or you can let this change you. You can do what you've always done. Or you can start walking in a completely new direction. But if you choose the second option, if you decide to take the first step toward your real life, here's a reminder. It's never too late. Never. No matter how much time you've spent in the dark, no matter how many years you've lived with an identity that wasn't yours, the only question that matters is, what will you do from now on? Because your life is not written. There's no fixed destiny, no predetermined ending. Everything that comes after depends on you. So tell me, are you ready to start living for real? If you made it this far, I want you to leave a comment with this phrase, awakening is irreversible. I want to know who really understood the message, who is ready to take the first step. And if everything we talked about today resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Psychotic Secrets, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Your support means everything, and it helps us grow this community of truth seekers. Because this is just the beginning. See you in the next video.